gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and some of our thoughts on the latest games releasing. As usual, it's me, your guide, Jake Baldino, and today we're talking about Sniper Ghost Warrior 3. Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 tries to dig itself out from the bargain bin, but in the process it kind of becomes pretty forgettable. I'm not going to try to be too harsh here, but this is just simply because Ghost Warrior 3's switch to open world game design. Some games that make the switch to open world found a reason for it, but here Ghost Warrior sometimes just feels like it made it just because. It does have some nice elements to it, but I think flaws and open world glitches and bugs hold it back. The setup is basic enough. You're an American soldier named John, you're dropped into the open world of the Eastern European nation of Georgia, and it's controlled by separatists. If you can't already tell by my enthusiasm, the story won't do much for you here. You're looking for your soldier brother while also doing guerrilla war tactic stuff, dismantling this occupying force while teaming up with some Call of Duty knockoff characters. Look, it's not very good. I don't mean to sound like I'm painting a broad stroke here or anything with that, but it's just the fact that the game doesn't bother to take any time to develop the characters or much of anything. But personally, I can totally excuse it because the focus here is on gameplay, and that to me is admirable, but still, there are some issues that I will get to. This country of Georgia does have some nice variety to it. You know, there's woods to bombed out swamps and towns to snowy mountains, and it does feel surprisingly vast. I will say the map looks packed enough with like bases and encampments and stuff to take down and small points of interest with like varying little small encounters within those, but the world still manages to still feel kind of empty and sparse. There's large stretches of nice looking environment filled with completely nothing. It almost feels a little bit eerie at times. It almost feels like playing DayZ completely alone. And it's especially creepy when you find the occasional civilian who barely even reacts to you. But otherwise, this entire game feels a lot like Far Cry 3 or 4, just a lot quieter and lower budget. You know, driving a vehicle from place to place, which the game forces you to do a lot, is immediately going to remind you of Far Cry, even smaller stuff down to ledge climbing animations and mechanics. But those smaller encounters I mentioned are interesting sometimes, you know, like you're saving civilians from digging their own graves, you're tracking down patrols using like a detective vision mode, and if you're into open world games, you know, the slowly dismantling an enemy encampment from the outside and doing all that stuff just can be pretty fun. Here it makes for some simple, carefree gaming, if a little bit throwaway. But setting up, strategizing, and taking down a most wanted target at your own leisure and however you want is Ghost Warrior at its best. While the weird open worldness might make things feel a bit off sometimes, when the game focuses on the main event, the experience usually really improves. And it's really at its best when it's doing its thing, sniping. Scouting out an area with your little drone, flying around, tagging enemies, and then using distractions and the occasional environment kills to your advantage all feels really, really good as you sneak around, headshotting soldiers one by one before anyone notices. You know, typical stealth stuff, but here it really works. It is easily the most fun aspect of the game. While the field of view and gun size is a bit weird, it controls and feels pretty nice. And that kill cam isn't perfect, but it is satisfying enough. The whole added layer of complexity here with factors like wind, bullet drop, elevation, and distance, and even using different types and calibers of ammo does a really awesome job of making you feel like a badass sniper. And upping the difficulty isn't something I recommend for every player, but like I said previously with Sniper Elite 4, this makes it almost an entirely different and way more challenging game. The normal mode is way too damn easy thanks to not very smart AI that barely even bothers to hunt you down and just kind of wait around to get shot. But if you really like sniping games and you're feeling nasty, you should bump up the difficulty because that's when the mechanics really start to become challenging, and that's where the good design here does become apparent. When things get more up close and personal, the developers did attempt to give you more options with stealth kills, a few gadgets, and even assault rifles to go in guns blazing. It controls well enough, and the gadgets are nice, but it just still manages to feel basic and nowhere near as strong as just sniping. You're always going to resort to sniping because it's the most fun aspect of the game. The Ghost and Warrior options feel more like a half-assed plan B than an actual complete other option to tackle an objective. But thankfully, even when you're just sniping, the game gives you plenty of different opportunities to tackle your objective, and it's nice. Now, you'll probably notice by now that with every good thing I have to say about Sniper Ghost Warrior 3, I also have something pretty bad to say. And the worst offender is the absolute technical mess of a state in which the game shipped in. This game puts Mass Effect Andromeda to shame. And look, I try not to hate too hard, but this is rough. While the gameplay I recorded here is on a PS4 Pro, I also managed to lay eyes on the PC version, and a lot of issues seem consistent throughout. It's just not a very good looking game with weird lighting and muddy textures and a frame rate that is very iffy on consoles. I had 3 crashes over roughly 20 hours of play, and various enemies I kept seeing often disappear or completely glitch out on me fairly often. Even after a patch that apparently tried to fix things, things didn't really seem so great. The biggest offense here though is the draw distance. Zooming in with your sniper rifle causes the world to slowly pop in through your scope as the game tries to keep up. Sometimes the game doesn't even finish rendering and results in the world you're looking at through your sniper scope, which you do a lot, just tends to look ugly and awful. And a really fundamental flaw I discovered that sniping fans are really going to be bothered by, occasionally, listen, don't snipe enemies from too far away, or sometimes the game's limited memory will actually cause those kills to disappear and respawn new enemies as you close in. It's almost like the game can't handle you sniping from too far away and it tries to rein you in with suggested sniping posts. What the hell was that all about? Like, how did they miss that? It's a bit of a damper on an otherwise decent sniping experience, if I'm honest. So if all the bad things I described don't bother you, thankfully, if you're looking for some challenging sniping, or maybe just some absent-minded open world base raiding gameplay, there is stuff to grind through. If you want that, you get it. There's even this skill progression system for stealth, sniping, and shooting, all three of which you can upgrade with different skills. Those skills aren't really exciting at all, but hey, there's progression at least. What is much better though is the gun customization. Here you use this currency to buy upgrades and little things with different scopes, weapon skins, ammo types, extended clips, all that stuff. And while it's not as deep as I hoped, it's still pretty solid and paced nicely. But listen, Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 is a B-tier, lower budget game where, for me personally, the problems slightly overshadow the charm. However though, I've seen a lot of you guys tweeting me saying you're enjoying the game, and I do see where there is some redeeming qualities, but it just didn't work for me. So with that, I can't recommend you go out and buy this game right this second. Think long and hard about that. Maybe wait for it to show up in the bargain bin, and that's if you're a big fan of sniping games. But that's how a Before You Buy works. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion thrown in there, but now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments, because this does seem to be a divisive game. And while people seem to have loved and hated Sniper Ghost Warrior 2, I think Sniper Ghost Warrior 3 is at least improved in most spots. But if you are a fan of the series, I do want to hear what you think. Also, if you're just on the outside looking in, looking at this game, what do you think? Are you judging it by the cover? Do you think it's going to be as bad as I described? Am I being too harsh on it? I don't know, anything you want to talk about Sniper Ghost Warrior 3, we can talk down in the comments. I'll be there answering your questions, but I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino if you want to go yell at me over there. But you guys know how this works. Clicking the like button helps us out so much, and we really have appreciated it. But subscribing if you're new is a good idea too, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
I'll see what's up. Is there anything more I should know?
No, John. Sorry. No further intel on Robert.
Jesus Christ, where is he? Knowing him, he's hiding in plain sight, the sneaky bastard.
He's good at what he does. And that's what will keep him alive. I'm doing everything I can, John.
I know.